You're welcome back, and you're still watching Newsnight. It's a special off-cycle election day here in Nigeria in 3 states. One in the north central, Kogi, and Bayelsa in the south, and Imo in the northeast. Now, to help interrogate the outcome of today's election, we're now being joined by Asen Wagu, who is the chairman of the Partners or Electoral Reforms. Is going to assess the situation so far. Very warm welcome to our special election coverage of these 3 states.
Thank you. Nice being with you tonight.
Yeah, I mean, with all you've heard in the news, 1 death recovered so far, looks as if the security agencies and even the electoral umpire this time are top their game. Do you want to agree, more or less?
Well, I've always felt that the big challenge for our election may not necessarily be those 2 that you mentioned. And what this is continues to play out is the continued absence of the political class, the politicians and their political parties, from the need for, shifting away from the need for free, fair, credible elections. And why I say that is, you will see that there is determination by the security agencies, by INEC, to do what they have to do, because this is an off-cycle election. The attention of the world is not like the general election where you see these are just 3 states, 5 million, 100 put together at the same time. But some of those infractions that we are seeing, the issue of vote trading, for instance, it's worrying.
We're going to come to that.
Yes.
Let's just assess, the general outcome from opening of the polls to the end of the polls.
Yes, so in Imo is appalling in terms of the statistics that is coming both from Yaga and from CDD. You will see that 27% by 8:30 is not good. Once the punctuality index is affected, then it spirals into a challenge of either you have been to extend the time so that more people can be accommodated to participate in the electoral process. 66% for Bayelsa and Kogi is heartwarming. It shows that there were not a lot of hitches in terms of the vendors, the transport vendors who will move materials from one point to the other. The security agencies probably were also available on time to lead those materials from the rack centers to the polling units. So we've called at Yaga, for instance, for extension of polling time for people in Imo State to be able to participate in the process. So for voting and accreditation, the statistics for the 2 states,
they vary.
They vary.
They are not encouraging.
No, they are not encouraging. And
but that of Imo, would you say it is far-fetched? Why that is? Voter apathy could have played a role, or the
well, I'm very careful in using voter apathy, and there's a reason for that. Okay. Oftentimes it's the business of the politicians who benefit from the votes to mobilize their members. If an enabling environment has been created.
But once there is apathy, it just could have been caused by various factors.
I agree.
Originating particularly from past experiences. If you look at 2019 and 2023, those Nigerians in the age bracket who were voting for the first time,
yes,
the way they were disenfranchised, the way people were killed and the rest.
In 2019?
Yes, and you asked yourself if it is worth coming out to really vote.
Well, the most important thing is that if you vote, if you don't vote, you have voted. And if you don't vote, you have voted. Because at the end of the day, the votes of those who count will be...
Who voted will count.
So you have voted for those things you don't want. indirectly. So it is important that that civic responsibility, that people understand that it's important for them to come out and cast their votes, irrespective of what challenges there are. Because there is nothing that, whether we like it or not, a governor will emerge in these 3 states in the next few days at most. And those people, and the issue will not be I did not vote. You can't say you did not vote. It's the governor. It will be your governor, whether you voted or you did not vote. So the continued argument that, oh, because of what happened in the past, election is a process. Okay, there are learning curves. Each of it is a learning curve.
Are we deepening democracy and the electoral process in Nigeria?
with
today's...
I think off-cycle elections are different from the challenge that you have with general elections. Because the attention, the eye of the world, if you check INEC graph in terms of what it does with off-cycle elections, the indices are always up in terms of punctuality, in terms of all of those issues that you have. If you check Edo, you see that the issues perhaps you had with transmission of results did not come in Osun, they did not come in Ondo, they did not come in Edo State, but which are off-cycle elections. But because you have this huge number of polling units in Nigeria, for instance. The election you are talking about is the population of Liberia. Liberia is 5.4 million people. And
3 states, you have voters.
So when we deal with these issues, we need to be nuanced a bit in terms of how we engage them.
Yeah, but we'll have to look at the sophistication of the 2 countries, because you try to use population figure.
Yes.
Then have you used development indices? Where would we get materials faster to?
Yes. So the challenges here are huge. They're enormous. There are places in our country where even within these states, for instance, you have to get gunboats to escort materials. You know about the mishap that happened in Bayelsa, for instance. You have to,
luckily,
all of them.
And the rest.
So you have to use gunboats. You have to use marine facilities. You have to use air to take materials. Those things are huge challenges in terms of conduct of elections. But beyond all of that, I think for this particular election, the Electoral Management Body and, relatively speaking, the security agencies, but they did well in terms of holding out the expectation of Armageddon that everybody had going into the 3 state elections. But these other infractions of vote trading, issues around this funny result sheet.
The result sheets. Why is INEC? I was going to ask you, why is INEC, saying some senior officials, putting that in parentheses? The people you've deployed to particular areas for your election. Should it take another 24 hours before you fish those people out? How did the result sheets?
See, I've particularly been saying that some disgruntled INEC officials subvert
the process,
electoral conduct.
Disgruntled with what? Or could it be greed?
No, unscrupulous.
Unscrupulous. Absolutely.
Unscrupulous.
Yes.
Even before the election, they hawk all kinds of solutions to politicians. And our politicians are always interested in dubious advantage. But there is something that is interesting for me in all of this. If there is no complicity of party agents, opposition party agents, for instance, or party agents of those who may have, who are not part of this whole process, if there is no complicity on their part, you can't rail that in. It will be difficult to rail it in. And if you do that, but the EOs, the electoral officers of those particular local governments where this infraction happened, should be placed under suspension right away. He doesn't have to take anything. Whether they are the ones that are involved or not, they should be the one pointing the people who did that. The EOs are responsible for this conduct of election in their local governments, and these materials are given to them for in trust for safekeeping. And of course, if so, I do not think whether they are SPOs or EOs. If in your own local government you have to be held vicariously liable for those infractions.
It's a vicarious liability. A lot of Nigerians will agree with you, but it just shows that some Nigerians don't want a development or the deepening of our democratic system and culture.
The politicians, majority of our politicians don't want that deepening. See, look at their party primaries. Look at the way they conduct themselves. Look at the kind of things that you still hear in 2023. The kind of things that you hear people do, where elections have not been conducted and you're already writing result sheets. It's amazing. It's something that you can't think about. You can't fathom that you don't want to win or lose in an election through, the stated rules and guidelines. But it's all a play. In the morning, when we are looking at the process, the opening of the polls, I was telling in another medium, I was saying, hey, the party agents, look at the way these cubicles are being placed. Many places they compromise the secrecy of the ballot. And you sit back, you are an agent of a political party, you don't say this cubicle has not been well placed. An observer shouldn't say that. It is the responsibility of the party agent who represents his party in a polling unit to raise those infractions. But everybody hopes to benefit, because if you look at the narratives that are coming in the area of vote trading, both the dominant political parties are incriminated in it.
Well, if you say everybody, wants to benefit or has to benefit, then why do you blame the electorate, the voter, for buying votes?
First is because it diminishes them as a people. It diminishes you that you have to franchise your voting right. The cost of living is tied to that you're voting. The person who will govern you for 4 years is ingrained, is resident in that PVC. So if you diminish it, if you devalue it by selling it, you sell your right to question, your right for accountability, your right for transparency, your right for integrity in leadership. It's sold away. You've parceled it away because of 2,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 that we are hearing that is going on. And that is so, and more importantly, is a crime. Vote trading is a crime by our law.
That we've not seen anybody, prosecuted.
So it's part of that gap in terms of security provisioning. You have deployed 40,000 to Imo, 20,000 to Bayelsa, all of those things. Where is the value for money in terms of the number of arrests that are being made? Each time
we heard of one local government chairman in Kogi State with 1 million naira in cash.
Yes,
and the rest.
Yes, in Adavi, Ogori Magogo. And now the challenge will be for all of us to follow up and see whether we can make an example
of that
particular person. But you will see that there will be furor around what has happened. But as soon as all of this goes off,
somebody goes from behind and get them out of it, and there'll be no prosecution.
So that's what we face. So the big challenge is that those who have responsibility for security provisioning are doing sit-down look. The argument is that INEC official is supposed to tell them to go and make an arrest before they can do so. I don't understand
and they're part of the election.
It's not. Why do we even
have to? They are key stakeholders.
Why do we even have to specialize crimes committed during election? Why are they special crimes? The law, the Police Act, gives the police the powers to arrest. In fact, citizens have a right to arrest people if you commit a crime. And I've been saying this since morning. The most important, most powerful person in this country is the Inspector General of Police. He can arrest anybody. And whether election is on or not, even on mere suspicion of committing of a crime, you can be arrested. And yet during elections, we explain this away. We outsource it to, INEC officials have to tell you to make arrests. Now we are talking about...
Is that what is in the electoral law?
How can it be in the electoral law?
Well, then that means the security agents or agencies don't even know their own constitutional rights.
They know. Oftentimes, it is not...
Are they compromised?
Oftentimes, it is not ignorance.
Are they compromised?
Oftentimes, it is not ignorance. It could be mischief. So, it could be a play of both. Okay? So, the big challenge is that if you see this level of infraction in terms of the things that we're hearing, and there are no concomitant arrests that follows it, then the only answer to that is that somebody is and in Kogi particularly, that is what you see play.
But one beautiful thing out of the election in Kogi today, if you just oppose it to what happened in 2019, you know, that it's so redeemable. We didn't hear it this time around. So
when an incumbent is in the theater, the context is different. When an incumbent is seeking re-election, in this particular case, in 2019, the incumbent then was seeking re-election. So there was much more desperation. This time around, he's supporting a candidate. Okay, he may not use the same kind of vigor that he used in 2019 to prosecute. And then there is also the deep interest of the other extraneous forces to make sure that there is no repeat of those kind of, because it diminishes us as a people. And my theory is that the political temperament in a state is tied, the political temperature in the state is tied to the political temperament of the incumbent and other gladiators in that state. If their temperament is for civility, if their temperament is for fellow feeling, then you are going to see that come to play. But if their temperament is haughty and violent prone, then you are going to see that. And that is what is at play in the three states today.
And let's pigeonhole it to Imo State. What kind of temperament, did we see there today in this election?
No, absolutely. Election is a process. The lead up to the election was violent. Okay? Killings, burnings of people, beating up of the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress.
I was going to say that. Yes. And even Honorable Lugo Chinyere.
Yes, and then signage, making a signage law that imposes 554 million for opposition political parties to paste posters, to issue circular that hotels, they book hotels and ensure that people do not have access to those
the government
places.
denied that.
It's not what is denied or what is not denied. The fact is that.
But your people are on ground there, and I'm sure they got hotel accommodation to observe the election.
Many of them, these hotels are the prominent ones. These reports came from our observers. We have pre-election observation reports that have been issued, and I'm sure you have access to that. Mm-hmm. And that has been made public. So the denial is not important. And what for me is worrying is that there is no consequence management. When all of this happens, even if you have immunity, your immunity expires at a certain point in time. Things that were done in the times when you have impunity, the time does not overtake them. We should be able to hold people responsible and accountable, because we give the impression that E-Day activities, election day activities, are not the culmination of it's just a part of the event. So the E-Day can be peaceful, but also note that if you have followed all the reports, whether Justice Lebu report on election violence or any other report, the 2014 constitutional conference, or whichever report you are looking at, most of the issues that you have are pre-election or post-election. E-days are naturally free because all the gladiators are interested in who controls the process, and that is why we need to put more searchlight behind and forward to make sure that those who commit crimes during this whole process
don't go scot-free,
and that they are dealt with.
Absolutely. There must be some deterrent so that we can continue to deepen our democracy and all the institutions around it. Okay, you're not going yet because we want to go on a short break, and when we return, we'll be crossing live to Imo State to give you updates on happenings there. Stay with us. You're welcome back. You're still watching Newsnight with the special edition on the off-cycle elections in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states. Low turnout of voters marked the governorship election in Imo State. The poll opened as early as 8:30 a.m. with accreditation and voting going on simultaneously in various polling units in the state, but the turnout of voters was said not to be impressive. in Otulu Primary School in Oro West local government area of Imo State, booth 002 and 003, INEC officials are available alongside electoral materials, but the voter turnout is nothing to write home about. The same scenario also played out at Omuma booth 032, where election officials and materials were on ground, but few people were available to express their franchise. The election also witnessed vote buying, as few available voters were seen by passing Beaver's accreditation and go straight to cast their votes. Meanwhile, Governor Hope Uzodinma, the candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the Imo governorship poll, has cast his vote at his hometown, Omuma, booth 032. Addressing journalists shortly after casting his vote, Governor Uzodinma praised the electoral body and security operatives for living up to his expectations, adding that the process in the state is seamless and largely peaceful.
I want to commend INEC. I want also to commend the security agencies for the kind of deployment they have done and how orderly the environment has become. And contrary to the ugly expectation that the environment will not be there for voting to take place, we can see that the INEC has risen to the occasion and everything seems to be good.
Everything is peaceful here, and the voters have come here to vote, and those ones that cannot find their name on the register, they were directed to the appropriate booths to cast their votes. So far, everything is okay, it's free, it's fair, and in terms of security, we are fine.
What we saw here today, it didn't give us happiness. Because even the APC, they are here doing vote buying, giving people money, doing all sorts of things to the extent even they didn't go through the beavers. They are just tearing the ballot paper, giving people to just vote like that. So, and this is not the way INEC told us that they are going to do it.
We are having issues since morning, and those APC members, they are using money to get many people here. So they are using money to pay them to vote, and after every even they are using many people. If they vote, those people will come back and vote again. So we are shouting and calling our chairman and everything to come and see what is happening.
It's a normal thing. It's a normal accusation. This is politics for you in Nigeria. It's normal for anybody to lay false accusation, but it can be proven anywhere. So you should come to court and prove it.
All right, for more on the developments in Imo State, we're now being joined by the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Samuel Anyanwu. Hello. Tell us, how did the election go? But from what is being aggregated after polling opened between 8 and 8:30, there isn't so much good news about the exercise in Imo State today. Do you agree?
Well, of course, you've already said it. The exercise in Imo State, the election today was not an election. Rather, it's a war. It's a war because what INEC promised was not what we saw. First of all, you find out that the election started by 10:30. I voted by 10:30, even though there was voters' apathy. But yet, you find out that in the middle of the election, we saw a lot of non-state actors supported by the police cutting away materials from all the polling booths. I give you an example. In a place like our local government, 7 wards, the ballot papers materials were cut away and was sent to the house of the traditional ruler called Ezimo, where they started templating. In Umkwere local government, they cut away materials and sent it to one man's house. I think Oche once or so. In my place, They also went and carted materials, went to one man called Charles Amadi, and the son was also arrested. The son is a serving member of the House of Reps. He was arrested and sent to the custody as we speak. The policeman that accompanied them to carry materials was apprehended, beaten to stupor. His arms taken away from him by the restive youths who was resisting the taking away of their materials. The funny part of it is this: in Okiwe zone, there was no election, no result sheets sent to those polling units. But you can see that in most of those result sheets, when there was no accreditation, is reading 0. You find out that numbers were inflected. Where there was accreditation, you find out that the result uploaded was more than what's accredited. And this is very foul to what INEC said. And to be honest with you, this is no election. It is no election. Even somewhere at Tata in the Kedru, a young man was killed. I don't know when election has become a theater war. And for me, I will advise INEC that if you have said that they are going to use beavers, today beavers is not being used. You find out that the results are being collected manually. And they will tell you that the beavers is not working. There's no data. So I don't understand. What kind of election is that? So as far as I'm concerned, the election in Imo State was nothing to write home about. And I believe that INEC, if they say it's an off-cycle election, and then they want to make sure that it will be fair, free, and credible. But what we have seen today is what we saw on the March 18th. In fact, if you my deputy
I just want to come in there quickly.
Was attacked.
Have you been able to put together this evidence, whether in video form and in written form, to present before INEC, to present before the security agencies, particularly your words that the cutting away of some of the electoral materials were aided by the police, and one such police officers, the people took the laws into their hands to manhandle him or dehumanize him. That's not supposed to be. So have you aggregated your evidence and sent them forward?
I have an evidence. I have a video coverage on that. It's here with me. And we're also making a petition, to the Rex in charge of this election. That has been done. And I decided to make this press conference before the collation of the results, so they know exactly what is going on in Imo State. As we speak, people are in people's houses. Most of the ad hoc staffs have been taken away. In fact, one of the results that was uploaded in the RF.
Okay, again, one critical issue you raised in your polling unit.
Was forced. Yes.
Sorry, sorry to cut in there. You raised another very serious issue around your polling unit or ward, that even result materials were carted away too. Did you vote?
I voted, but the other polling units around my area was carted away. In fact, when there were people trying to resist them, they shot on my vehicles. Four of my vehicles were destroyed when they tried to resist them from taking away those materials.
What were the security agents doing there? You have police within the precinct of the voting area. Yes, they are not armed. And you have those who are armed, at least maybe 10, 20 meters out of the voting precincts. They didn't intervene? Is that what you're saying?
In fact, when these people came, there was no police presence around. So they target that, the middle of the election, they will storm in the place, start shooting periodically the air, and then people run away. and they'll take away the materials. And that's what is happening everywhere. In Imbidi, Oru West, it happened. In fact, one of the polling officers was forced to write the result. And he put it there that he was forced to write this result. And it's there in IRF.
All right, thank you so very much, Samuel.
To cancel this election, because it's no election.
All right, I mean, the authorities will take note of what you've put on paper. Samuel Anyanwu is the governorship, PDP governorship candidate in Imo State. Thanks so very much. Now let's come back to you, Asen Wagu, the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms. You heard one of the candidates there in his own words, but I asked him when he said they carted away result sheets, from his words and the rest. The one critical is, did he vote? And he said yes. And you're wondering why they didn't cut.
Well, I think
you're from Imo State.
Yes, but I think I'm from INEC. I think that it's important to, when you are listening to politicians, you did what a veteran will do by posing that question. The data does not support what he's saying. The data that we have from Igbo State does not support that. In terms of, yes, polls didn't open on time, but by the time it was noon, the statistics had gone up to about 60% of polling units. And the beavers worked in many of the places where it was deployed. So the challenge is that you see him talking IREF. I was expecting to hear my party agents.
Not a mention of that.
Not a mention of my party agents.
But he said the people, the voters maybe.
You have party agents. The people are not, what is people? There are people you have detailed in polling units.
To watch your interest.
I'm not hearing you refer to them. What is in IREF? Because that is what has continued to play.
But the Supreme Court has... Look, I think the Supreme Court's judgment and statement is succinct. IREF is irrelevant to the Nigerian electoral process. If you do not, whether you INEC as the managers of the election, if they decide not to transmit by IREF, it does not make the election a nullity.
No, the reason for that, sir, is, I need to contextualize this. There's a reason why that is said. It is because there is a form EC8A that is given to a party agent in the polling unit.
Yes.
He signs these results and gets a copy for his principal. So I was listening to Senator Sam Anyanwu, and I wanted to hear my party agents in Imbidi, my party agents in Oru, my party agents in... I didn't hear that. He's saying people, no, that is playing on the realm that we have seen in conversations in elections, and we need to deal with it in a way that brings it down to your own responsibility as a politician who is in the electoral process. That does not take away the fact that these infractions could have happened. But I am saying that what will be of consequence to me as a participant observer in the electoral process is to tell me what your own agents reported to you, reports of your agents. And if you don't have that, you are just, what you are playing on is, but by statistics, they deployed about 90-something percent of the PDP had of party agents across the state. So collating what happened by these agents and tying them as witnesses is very key. you know, so that we don't go back to what was posted on the IREF, what was posted on the IREF, what was your agent's
own information
in the polling unit.
Yeah.
Were they the bad? If you told me that they were chased away from the polling unit, your agents were chased away and all of that, and they were not able to get your results in the polling units, then I can be comfortable. But I didn't hear that in all of that conversation.
All right, thank you so very much, Chairman of Partners for Electoral Reform, Asen Wagu.